I'm Max with peakdnd.
And I'm Ben. Welcome to the Peak.
This is D&D Ideas.
Sometimes it's just videos about Dungeons and Dragons.
Sometimes it's about Dungeons and Dragons and life.
Either way, it's always about ideas.
And adding more magic and fun to either or both.
And if you're in the mood for something a little different than your usual D&D videos, you're in the right place.
Today, we're talking about endings, what makes them good, what makes them bad, and how you can make yours the best.
Endings aren't easy. It makes sense.
With all the build-up and expectations put upon them, how could they be?
Oh yeah, unfortunately, the more of each, the more pressure there is to stick the landing.
But what exactly does stick the landing
What the f***? Can't believe it. You. I don't this, mistress. What the shit? Hasn't anyone ever told you it's rude to sneak up on a unicorn in its grove while it's enjoying its favorite podcast? Come to think of it, that's not even supposed to be possible. Who are you? Why are you here? What business do you have with I, Saint Gumdrop, Lollipop, Snuggly Face, Tiny Pants? What? Yes, of course I have every right to use that title. I am a lawful good divine being, for Cuthbert's sake. I couldn't lie about that if I wanted to. What? No. Quite easy, really. I simply submitted the appropriate number of topics to Ignorant and Uninformed, and one day, a totally legit and valid certificate of sainthood magically appeared in my grove. Now be gone! Jeff was just starting to talk about how much he loves Omega!
What exactly does stick the landing mean?
To us at peakdnd, it means callbacks, payoffs, and staying true.
Callbacks are references to what's come before.
Payoffs aren't something that we've directly talked about yet in our videos.
No, although the concept is danced around and alluded to in our video on world building.
You're right. Now, payoffs are positive results from choices made. When used correctly, they connect and add depth.
In addition to nourishing your world's roots, payoffs will also nourish your leaves.
Having the choices players made en route to the ending be a part of the ending makes that ending feel like theirs, and that the world feels a little more alive.
Now, staying true, the third component of good endings, is about honoring the elements of the story that got you there.
It's more than a feeling. No, it's more of a feeling. It's hooked on a feeling more than anything.
Since that's maybe not the clearest definition, Ben and I are going to pull a couple examples from pop culture to help clear things up.
One is pretty much universally reviled as being poorly done.
The other generally heralded as being well executed.
On one side, you've got the last season of Game of Thrones.
On the other, you've got the last episode of Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Anybody out there need help figuring out which one we don't like and which is the bad one? No? Good. I think we're all on the same page.
The last season of Game of Thrones wasn't satisfying.
No.
Not for the fans, not for the actors.
I mean...
And are you happy with how things ended?
Yeah. Best season ever!
Character development? Nah. I really need to shut up.
You're brave.
If you could describe the season finale of Game of Thrones in one word, how would you describe it?
Disappointing.
So, later.
There are no better writers in television than Dan Weiss and David Benioff. They ended it brilliantly, better than I could have imagined, and you people are in for it.
Now, without getting too far off the rails, using the criteria that we've outlined, it's easy to see how Game of Thrones botched their landing.
The show diverged from many of the things that made it so popular to begin with.
The pacing was different. The storytelling was different. It's like they turned their back on what got them to where they were in the first place.
That is exactly what we mean by staying true, or in this case, not.
To be fair, there were a few callbacks, but none of them were all that good or surprising or even helpful.
Payoffs? I mean, were there any at all for any character the audience cared about?
But on the opposite side of that, of the ending spectrum, you've got the final episode of Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Nine-Nine!
Chills, you guys. Literally chills.
Talk about callbacks, payoffs, and staying true. Good lord!
9-9 ended with an hour-long episode that stayed true to the series and referenced some of its best moments.
It was a heist episode. To anyone who's ever watched any of the series, that in and of itself is a fitting finish.
Now, the first heist episode was a Halloween episode all the way back in season 1.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Halloween heist!
It was such a big hit, there was a heist episode in almost every season thereafter.
Using a premise your audience loves to bring back characters and say goodbye, that is sticking the landing.
Hopefully, that helped clear things up a little bit at least, and failing that, if just one of you out there decides to hop on the 9-9 train, I feel like we've done our job.
9-9! Good endings call back, pay off, and stay true. Bad endings generally don't.
With that criteria in mind, Ben and I are going to show you how to stick the landing in your next campaign.
Now, obviously, we're not able to tell you the specific what's that you'll need to do to accomplish this.
Not knowing your story, not knowing your players, there is no way we can tell you what to call back, pay off, or how to stay true.
What we can do is show you. With the help from our finale of Into the Fae, a level 1 to 5 module by the DM Layers Luke Hart.
Get your copy today.
What worked for us and how we stuck our landing.
Notice Ben said we. While there's no question Nick, our beloved DM, had a huge part to play, his isn't the only part.
But as you'll see, Tony, Max, and myself all had parts to play to create a good ending.
Before talking about us and what we did, I'd like to pause and give Luke some love for the module itself.
Into the Fae has a beautiful book-ended sense of symmetry. It ends as it starts, in the sewers.
Luke also used a great emotional gut punch to get the party to these final sewers.
Using the relationships the party had forged during the module to set up the ending is both a callback and a payoff.
So thank you, Luke, for doing your part to help the groups who play through your module have good endings. And for that creepy snake altar.
Ah yes, creepy altars are indeed a callback for us. In episode 5, Frolicking in the Fae, I touched a creepy altar and never was quite the same after that.
No, I dare say trauma does that sometimes.
What we've mentioned so far comes from episode 34, back to where it all began.
However, it's episode 35, once more into the Fae, where the callbacks really start ramping up.
To me, this is really where the ending starts.
Early on, Tony shouts out the Lysanthir latency, his term for how your rolls go to shit when you see your dad.
Sure. Sadly, that has been a legitimate concern for me ever since episode 8, Jastian's awkward family dinner. We've all been.
The Archer potion chug, that shows up in 35, and that's a callback to the fight with Ethel from episode 27. Fare thee well, Frog Witch.
There's even a sneakier callback, one going all the way back to our as of yet unreleased session 0.
Are you talking about the preponderance of 4s?
Preponderance.
Was that episode 0? Was it episode 1? Who remembers?
This brings us to episode 36, Men Who Stare at Goats, or as I like to call it, the most peak D&D finale that there could ever have been.
No, you are right. So many elements, so many things that we've talked about in these videos show up in that finale. It's wild.
Starting with the fact that, of course, we didn't rest.
We did not.
It's cool. I didn't need my spell slots anyway. But getting to Lucy Slopgrowth and the final fight wasn't supposed to be as easy as it was for us.
There were fights and traps that we were able to avoid because we got a little help from our friends.
Making friends is the peak D&D way. Don't believe me? Well, check out this whole video we made about it.
Nick choosing to have our friends come back checks all 3 of our good ending boxes.
Their appearance is a callback, their help a payoff, and them showing up at all, staying true.
Talk about living world, son! Having your NPCs show up because of choices the party's made makes the world feel alive and the players feel like the game is theirs too.
My choice to have the Archfey as a patron got us out of the vines.
The choice that we made with the satyrs from episode 11, Meadery Mayhem, we decided to meet and not murder them, and they gave us meat and honeycombs that restored our hit points.
The lizard folk that we met in episode 24, Killing is Easy, It's the Talking That's Hard, showed up and fought a tree monster, so we didn't have to.
That's why you make friends in Dungeons and Dragons, because saving the world is fucking hard. The Beatles knew what was up.
I get by with little help from my friends.
Then, once we got inside, Lucy in the Fae with toes. Her big treehouse, there was another shout out that Nick made for one of our videos.
It's a quick reference, easy to miss, but Nick points out how there's new environmental data.
Which, if you've watched our video on priorities, you'd know that's a cause to pause and adjust your tactics.
The next callback, I'd say, is the bypassing of Lucy's boudoir.
Hey man, little things become big things. That's something I learned. Also that it's best to stay focused and not read.
Especially in the bedroom. Bringing us to the biggest callback of all, Dumbbell.
Back in episode 4, Cavern Kager! Tony one-shotted Dumbbell. She, it turned out, was one of Nick's favorites.
And because Nick is the dungeon master and tells us all what to do, because he can do whatever the hell he wants, decided to have her come back bigger and badder than ever.
For those who don't know, Ben is our resident mini maker and painter, so he actually knew Dumbbell was coming back.
But you and Tony had no clue, did you?
Not even a little.
I mean, I didn't know when it was going to happen, but I figured it was probably in the last fight. Dumbbell coming back wasn't just personal for Nick, she also served an important mechanical purpose in that fight as well.
You can learn more about that in our final Talking Fae.
Yes, it's really here in the final fight against the BBEH, she is a hag, where it gets the most peakD&D.
And it all started with your Pokeball.
Well, not true. It actually started the round before the goat got there.
Goat for goat, kids. Really?
Yeah, man. I mean, the previous round, Dumbbell rolled a 1, and before Nick even announced the result, all three of us jumped on that, cracking jokes about Dumbbell.
I mean, that sounds like us.
Pretty much. Each of us said something about betrayal or that she was on their wrong side before we had any idea that Dumbbell's errant fireball was going to end up headed for Lucy's head.
Then you dipped into your bag of tricks and garnered us a goat.
Ah yes, which, as you said, really was the MVP of this fight, which is hilarious that our best player was a goat.
I mean, it's not like we were exactly winning the day prior to the goat's arrival.
I love that goat.
Hell, it's not even like we were that stoked when the goat arrived.
Something else you'll hear us say is the dice tell the best stories if you let them.
It underlies our concept of yes-anding the story. Don't fight what the dice are doing. Let them lead.
And follow them, always looking to turn the situation in your favor. That's the peakD&D way, and that's what we tried to do.
Man, it's so true. You, me, Tony, we were all hoping for some other animal, one that could take a punch or give a punch.
Where's my bear? But a goat is what we got, and I, for one, am damn proud of what we did with it.
You used your bonus action to attack Dumbbell with the goat and missed.
Nick, yes, ended this situation and allowed the dice to tell their story.
He decided the goat didn't miss altogether with its headbutt. It made contact with Dumbbell, just not with enough force to do any damage.
So essentially, from Dumbbell's perspective, she just got cat-nuzzled by a goat.
And because Nick believes in sunning the trunk of his world tree too, Dumbbell is a robust character.
Nick had already decided ahead of time what she liked and didn't like.
He decided that Dumbbell was a fey, read chaotic creature with the mind of a child who loved whimsy.
And what does a chaotic creature with the mind of a child do when she gets nuzzled by the cutest little goat?
Well, she tries to pet it. And what happens when she rolls a 1 trying to pet it?
Let me tend to rabbits, George.
And you immediately yes-anded Dumbbell killing the goat without missing a beat.
Why would your mommy take away your goat toy?
That line and the subsequent opposed check, that changed the fight.
Oh yeah, before that we were kinda on the ropes.
It wasn't with a critical hit, it wasn't with lots of damage, but with a skill check and dialogue. That's how we gained the upper hand.
We stayed true to ourselves and the way we like to play until the very end.
every punch or ball of fire that was aimed at Lucy was one not aimed at us.
And what did you do as soon as Lucy and Dumbbell started focusing on each other?
I yes-anded the hell out of that situation. I used a cantrip to further fan the flames.
The best action in combat isn't always attacking. Sure, sometimes it is, but not always.
Our best round in the boss fight didn't involve a single attack roll on our part, or Tony.
In a way, this strategy itself is a callback to our video on epic boss battles, which this was. We didn't use carrots and sticks.
We used sticks and tricks to help keep Lucy and Dumbbell off balance and focused on one another.
And we used the time it gave us to gain the upper hand.
I snagged the broom and grabbed the spear.
I got Gord back on his feet.
Then, like every other boss fight we've had, Tony used his last spell slot that he's been saving to cast Divine Smite and deliver the killing blow.
But it doesn't end there. Ever on the lookout to make friends, even at the end of a campaign, the next thing we do is give Dumbbell a hug.
She'd had a rough day, man.
Oh yeah.
Oh, we had too. Also, that was definitely our best chance of getting out of there alive.
Oh, she definitely would have killed us if we had to fight her after all that.
Luckily, we didn't have to fight her because we started talking to her. You started flirting with her, which is a callback to your fallen ex.
Oh, Thelma. You told her about the summer court, a callback to our friendship with the satyrs.
I figured Nick would jump at the opportunity to keep one of his favorites around. Plus, Dumbbell's great.
And if that weren't enough, you did what you've been doing since our first time down in the sewers.
You mean waited till the paladin was sufficiently distracted before I went to steal things? Yes.
Yes, callbacks, payoffs, and staying true. The three keys to sticking that landing and creating an ending that feels satisfying and good.
Brooklyn Nine-Nine did it, and somehow we managed to too.
9-9!
Vindication!
Hey, thanks for sticking around and hanging out with us today, adventurers.
Have we piqued your interests?
Hopefully, we gave you something to think about and added more magic and fun to your day.
If you like what we do, in the words of our buddy Luke Hart, let the algorithm know we don't suck by dropping a comment.
Keep that daddy YouTube happy. If there's a topic you'd like us to cover, cast sending.
Our email lurks in the Underdark.
If this is the kind of thing and it's totally your... What? If this butters your jam... If this jam rolls your jam... If this kind of thing is your jam, roll to hit that subscribe button.
To every one of you who has and does, thank you. We are closer to leveling up because of you.
Dispel that glyph of warding around your notification bell. We'd hate for you to get skipped and miss your turn on the next video.
Wednesday, Saturday, peakD&D, Dungeons & Dragons, yeah.
Until then, keep on climbing until you reach your peak.
It sound right, boy.